Hello, welcome to this photo narrative of the interior life. I'm Derek Hope, and I will be your guide today. So, a quick introduction about myself. I'm Derek Hope, a PhD student in Biological Systems Engineering, and I've been in UW for the last 5 years, in which my photography has followed me since. I bought my camera just before I came to the US. When I was young, I lived in Singapore with my parents and two older sisters, one of whom is a badger, and married another Singaporean badger, producing a mini Singaporean badger, Rebecca, my niece and goddaughter. Oh, isn't she the most adorable little thing? Rebecca! During the past 10 years of my life, it's been rather eventful. I've managed to get selected for the Singapore national sailing team for a year, a police coast guard officer for another two, ran 3 marathons during that period, came to the States for my studies, became a founding father of the Catholic fraternity Phi Kappa Theta, tore my right ACL, and waddled like a penguin because of it, failed my driver's test in the US because I drove into the DMV on the wrong side of the road, had to take an extra year because I couldn't get into the program I wanted, became the daddy of two birdies, Perry and Blue, and many, many more adventures. And in the past year, I just finished my first year of my PhD program in trying to figure out how to detect microplastics found in agricultural fertilizers made from wastewater treatment plant sludge. Fun stuff. Also, they make very pretty light shows under ultraviolet. At the same time, I also became a wedding photographer of one of my freshman dorm mates, Dominique, who met her partner Michael on the Badger surface trips. So, yay, surface trips. So that is my life in a nutshell. Some triumphs and many more follies. It is true that all these things define me, but it all stems from something deeper, who I really am. I can tell you my personality test, Myers-Briggs results, INTJ, or my 5 top strengths: connectedness, discipline, individualization, relator, learner, or even my emotional journey, where I've only had 4 outbursts of anger in my entire life, two of which was telling my parents off. But none of these, coupled with my accomplishments or failure, can tell you about what's going on inside. Sometimes, nothing. So, in order to let you understand my interior life, I'm going to let you into my psyche, how I think, how I feel, how my intellect ticks, and heart reacts. To show you this side of me, I'm going to show you the past, my past in photographs, with my experiences and lessons I've learned from it. This is my life. All of this shaped by the people around me, as well as the voice that guides me. All these shots were exactly how I viewed the world back then when I took them. This was how I saw the world. So, this talk would be centered around one verse: Ego sum via veritas et vita. I am the way, the truth, and the life. And how photography has molded this spiritual life, and in turn has shaped my photography. Everything in life equilibrates to a balance. It's all about the balance. We just have to see what's worth shedding as well as what to pick up. There's no one right formula, and it will always be constantly worked on. But here's mine. Number one, the way to be. Just be. Number two, truth. To be loved by first being loved. 3. Life. Life will never leave us unless we choose to abandon it. So, let's begin. This is my journey. Please come along. Our hearts and mind in conflict. For this talk, we have two main characters of the interior life. One, the mind, the intellect who thinks all the time and is usually in charge of most situations and does all the problem shooting when we get into trouble. 2. The heart, the soul that who feels and expresses itself whenever it wants to. Often rash, it is usually the one that drags us into most of the trouble that we face. The heart and mind has experienced everything that came our way before this day. The stress of exams, the bottling of frustrations during family vacations, the uneasiness and joy of our first relationship. The heart and mind were in complete sync with one another. But what happened? Why are we now in a constant state of doubt, confusion, and even sometimes resentment towards our two selves? Something definitely changed as we started getting older. The two selves wanted to be content in very different ways. The heart wanted to experience the world, but always got hurt due to its foolishness, leaving the mind to clean up after its mess. The intellect already taxed with all our responsibilities, our studies, our work, our lives, didn't want to indulge the heart's desire. They constantly bickered and they ceased to be united all the time. And when our hearts and minds attempt to work together, we just apply a quick fix of a band aid on the wound, but never really address the fractured elements within. We try to dismiss it or compress all of this conflict into a minuscule grain of sand. However, a tiny fragment is still enough to disrupt a stillness of a lake. No matter how small that chaos is, can we really say that we are truly at peace? Now, imagine your room. It's mess, it's clutter, it's stuff strewn all around everywhere. You've acquired each and every item at different times of your life. They each hold sentimental value to you. The knowledge you've acquired through these books, the past captured through the pictures, our interest in the art that we hang up on display, the future in all the potential stored in books to be read, instruments to be played, and plants that we are cultivating. Our rooms are a tangible manifestation of our inner selves, the truest expression of you in a physical space. It is also the home of our two selves, the heart and the mind. If the heart and mind always disagrees, how can we figure out the best arrangement of our room? To answer that, we need to know the goal behind our arrangement, the purpose of its arrangement, be it more floor space, more access to the light, or the ability to host friends over. The current state of our room right now is due to our past, but the future arrangement of it depends on what we do right now in the present. So, do we want to start now to make it the best room it could possibly be? So, how is the state of our own room, our interior life? If Jesus were to come tonight to have a sleepover, would you want to invite him in? You may be embarrassed to let him in, or even outright deny him entry because of its disarray, but that is the least of his concerns. He has suffered far worse. From young, he was rejected from inns and had to reside in the stable. He only wants to be let in. He's not a guest that you have to impress. He's a friend who will help you move your furniture around and reorganize your life with you. He has already arranged a perfect room for you up in heaven, where each object has been carefully placed to put you at ease in his house. Can't we let him walk in us to show us a sliver of divinity, to show us the divine order that once was in our life before all this chaos? Can't we allow him to show us heaven on earth? So, if our room is not up to standard, or at least our standard, what shall we do? Well, I would advise you to do one of my favorite hobbies in life: move furniture. But in this case, spiritual furniture. FYI, in 2019, I shifted my physical room at least 8 times. In 2018, so many more. So, I've distilled furniture moving into 4 steps. Number 1, dissatisfaction. Number 2, Disassembly which leads to disarray. Number 3. Discarding and detachment. Number 4. Diligently doing. Dissatisfaction. So how do we know when the piece of furniture has found its ideal spot? We reason in our heads, debating as we bite our lip. Where is the most optimal place to put stuff? We wonder. Sometimes we ourselves get so myopic that we need a friend to talk about our predicament. Jesus is a fantastic interior designer. He is order and provides peace to the ones who ask for his help. So why not invite him in to help you? But be warned, he's not going to do this heavy lifting. You yourselves have to do it. The heart and the mind have to both come together and work together to move stuff. And when the going gets tough, when we have to move this spiritual sofa, he will provide us a helping hand to pivot and direct us to where we need to go, turning us back towards the right course, where we truly need it the most. Next, disassembly which leads to disarray. Just like moving furniture around a room, there are always obstacles that crop up from its disequilibrium. In order to put the bed where the shelf has to first move, which in turn moves something else, and it continues until the room is a war zone. The room's a mess, and we've already put in so much effort only to see it get worse. That right here is the most difficult part of our interior lives. We know we need to change, so we started and are progressing through this limbo. Disheartened, we want to revert back to our old selves because it was more comfortable than this. We can't comprehend the full picture that God is instructing us to do. We doubt, but we have to persist. Step 3. Discerning and detachment. During this process in limbo, it is a chance for us to see what is necessary in our lives. As we hold on to each item as we move them, can we ask ourselves whether this object in our lives brings us joy? And if it doesn't, chuck it out as per instructed by Marie Kondo. Does it bring us everlasting joy? If we are hesitant, you can always ask Jesus Kondo for help, and he will lead us towards order, even if we aren't able to recognize it for ourselves. Less stuff in our lives mean more room for Jesus to reside within us. This period of Lent is a perfect opportunity to do so, to detach from the things that we don't necessarily need, to shed all the superfluous aspects in our lives, so that we may uncover what is true and needed. One of my favorite quotes that has guided me through grad school, as well as my spiritual life, is the continuous and tireless winnowing and sifting by which only truth can be found. Lent is the period that we sort through our lives and condense it to figure out what will remain true for eternity. And that for me is that we are loved by God and we must love Him by passing it on. My personal Lenten fast is to shed the extra stuff in my life, which involved me putting away my 22 fun print shirts so that I can wear my 20 other plain ones. As you can tell, I have way too many shirts. I'm also stopping my YouTube binges so that I can spend time with those who are important to me. All of you, as well as Perry and Blue. Even listening to music has been cut out from my life. In turn, I'm listening to a metronome to keep reminding myself to live second by second. I know it's rather extreme, but I want to be focused in the present moment at all times. Lastly, diligently doing. Unmotivated by the chaos, we feel like giving up, but we need to strive on. We need to get the bare essentials in place. The bed, the couch, the lights, as well as the phone charger, so that we'll all be able to survive until the room is completely cleared. It is the same with our spiritual lives. We need to get the fundamentals in place. The daily meditations in the morning, a rosary throughout the day, and finishing off the day with an examination of conscience. We need to have that foundation in our lives to be prepared for what's to come. And this involves putting away all the infinite amount of knickknacks we've collected throughout our lives. We have to keep at it, to keep working on our rooms patiently, bit by bit, every day, and always ask Jesus what to keep or what to shed. Sometimes He gives us a direct answer, most of the time, the most indirected, convoluted response, but always in due time. So the only way to be able to heed His advice is to be present at all times and listen out for it. We have to make all that we do, our work, our studies, our gatherings, a prayer by being present for others and share God's love with them by being the most perfect, Christ centered version of you. Also, this step will never be finished. In this wall of entropy, life will always get messy and we will always have to work on it, always improving on it. So, now that we are done arranging our room, for now, do you want to show it off to guests? Can you let people into your abode and let them see the most vulnerable state of you? Do you want to let others in to see to let them see what our lives are truly like? Could you live this interior life in the outside world? If we do, that is the first step towards sainthood. Like the saints, they all have had their own set of hardships in life, but they strived in it. Their stories are so beautiful because there are thousands of different lives, different interior rooms that all center around one thing: loving God to the very end. They have loved God before us and have shared their blueprints to follow in their footsteps, but not verbatim. For every saint is different, and so would every future saint be as well. Your life is yours, so be the best self that you can be, and that can only be done through God. If we follow all His instructions to the very end, we can become saints. We just got to notice His signs in our daily lives. For me, I see in the verse, I am the way, the truth, and the light. The way. So, let us begin our journey at the very beginning. The way. Quo vadis. Where do we go now? We are lost, but we don't have to be. There's our Creator that has always been by our side, through the years, days, seconds. But have we been there for Him? Have we been present in the moment, to be with Him, second by second? When was the last time we were just in His presence, to just be? To be. To be present in the moment, to be one with nature, to be His, and to do His will. To be ourselves, our perfect form of it. Easier said than done. With the talents He's graced us with, His blessings He's showered upon us, that we are tasked to nurture, as well as the will He bestowed upon us to do. We all know that our goal at the end of the day is to be saints. But the question we always ponder is how? Which path should we go down? How do we listen to His directions? In photography, that is the number one rule of the game. You have to be aware of the world around you without being distracted with it. There's so much information and opportunities around us that sometimes it's just overwhelming. But the moment I have my camera with me, I carry a new responsibility to not capture the now, but my now. Every frame, every photo, every smile I witness is my personal now, captured in graphic form. All my photos were just memories that I once had, and some of them that I'm forming right now. This was how I saw the world at a particular point of time. It was my past that made me present today in front of you. In my life, especially my photographic journey, I've been blessed with a voice that I trust to guide me. Where to go, which journeys to embark on, what surprises to discover. Usually, it's dictated by a sudden urge to make a left instead of a right, or to go down a little path less trodden. Whether or not that may be considered impulsive to some, I don't have any qualms with it, as I often bump into friends who, in hindsight, I needed to meet. Whether it is bumping into an old classmate, Hannah from Singapore, in Fresh Market, despite her not even attending school in America, or to make a transsexual friend called Marie, who brought me back to Madison safely as I tried to cycle home from Janesville. She was really the sweetest angel, one who loaded my bike into her car and cycled with me from her home an hour away. Not only did she teach me about financial planning on the way back, she was my cycling coach all the way back to town. I will never forget her. I've been grateful with all their encounters, and I was lucky enough to capture some of their adventures in pictures. Even though I am blessed to have been able to witness these moments, oftentimes it could be overwhelming as there are so many distractions that could tear you away from this present moment. They could include distractions by reviewing the photos after taking it, overthinking the next frame, getting impatient for the right moment to arise. All of these experiences I've gravely suffered from. But the worst mistake of all is to not enjoy the perfect moment itself, to forget to be when you were there but absent. This sentiment was captured perfectly by Sean Connell in the movie The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. He was the elusive photographer who Walter Mitty had to search for and finally found him camouflaged in the hills, where he was scouting a snow leopard for days. When the majestic animal finally lined up to the spot that he perfectly framed, he didn't take the shot. His response was, "Sometimes I don't. If I like the moment for me, personally, I don't like to have the distraction of the camera. I just want to stay in it. I just want to stay in it." Just like Sean Connell, we just have to be present in the moment. I'm not saying that the interior life is easy to achieve. In fact, it is the most difficult task you could ever have in your life. Oftentimes, you think you're asking the right questions. What to do next? What future event can I do to glorify you? How can I do it? Valid questions, but they don't strike the nail on its head. The biggest and most important question to ask is, when do you want your will to be done? The response isn't as grand as you think. It's now, but always now. You evangelize by letting Him be present in you, and you in Him always. When you fail, always keep resuming the now. Live to be the most human like Jesus, now and forever. He showed us how. Now we just have to imitate Him. And if you think you're doing it right, there will and always will be more responsibilities to bear. But the cross is light, because we will always be given a yoke that only we ourselves can bear. The more you start being present, the more you start feeling as if you live in a different plane of presence. Your internal world becomes how you react in the secular world. You thread very delicately in between. There isn't a disunity between the cells, just a seamless presence of who you are meant to be. You are at peace with yourself, even without realizing it. So, if you're wondering whether or not you're on the right path, I am there right with you. I too am awaiting the response within the silence. This is the time where Jesus is away from our rooms and we await his arrival. But now, we have to decide on whether or not we will revert back to our previous messy state or continuously strive to maintain the order in the room. Or we could even, during this time, when he is away, spruce up our rooms, invite our friends over, family, and even our enemies into our rooms to be our true selves with them. Invite all of them to share in the feast that you've prepared, or to let them be the shoulder to cry on when they need you the most. That is what we must do, not to hide our talents, but to be present using them for others. And I'm lucky that my hobby has allowed me to capture just that. I am more sensitive to the signs that manifest in the physical world. I have witnessed the bittersweet love of a mother losing her daughter as she gains a son. I'm also thankful that I've had the opportunity to capture the beauty of baptism and the joy that comes from it. When we celebrate all these milestones with our friends, photography can become a prayer. That's when the most pleasant and surprising photos come about, and the now becomes a gift, and that is why we call it the present. The truth. So, what is truth? To first get to the truth, we have to first admit that we don't know everything. That's the truly humbling thing about grad school. We will never know everything. In photography, there's so many deceptions that hide this truth from us. So many camera tricks, so many illusions that we use to let you see perfections when we ourselves are surrounded by chaos. Take this photo. It was of our Phi Kappa Theta chartering 5 years ago. It looks like there's nothing wrong with this picture. But if you look closely at the two doors that flank our sides, do you notice two girls sitting in the same position? Well, Photoshop has allowed me to fix up one portion of the photo by flipping it on its symmetric side. And if your eyes are really attuned to it, this will be rather eye-catching and eerie, as the shadows are cast in the wrong directions. Photographers can make reality seem perfect when in fact it never is. We create a very unrealistic expectation of what life could be, and this is prevalent in the celebrity Photoshop industry. Now, this is one of my favorite deceptions I've ever done in my life. This was taken in Canada, in Banff, far away from civilization, where my family and I managed to escape to the wilderness, trek through the vast countryside to stumble upon an untouched lush field of flowers with mountains in the background. Nah, it was just along the road, and this lush field was just a tiny plot of flowers that somehow managed to survive in the middle of the highway. So, that's the reality of photography. There are many tricks that you can do to deceive people, but is that what we're really called to do? Is that the truth that we want to be spreading? This fake truth. So, what is the ultimate truth that we should be spreading? That embodies everything that is good? Easy. It's love. A love that is so genuine that it will never want to deceive. In the words of Pope Francis, real power is love. Love that empowers others. Love that sparks initiatives. Love that no chain can hold because this love is capable of loving even on the cross or on a deathbed. It is revolutionary and is a power that doesn't lead to self destruction. So, the ultimate truth is love, genuine love for others. But to love well, we need to customize our charity towards others. Everyone is different. Everyone wants to be loved differently. We need to seek the unique identity of truth, its dignity, dignity of both man and of the world. There, only truth can be found. We need to love in different ways, 4 different ways to be precise. Storge, love between family. Philia, love between friends. Eros, love between lovers. Agape, love of God. Storge, love between family. We start loving here because we are first loved by our parents, who painstakingly loved us from our smelly diaper days. If we are lucky, we had other siblings to co-share this love as we ran away from our mother when she brought out the cane to whoop our asses. tough love, and then we pass it on by endearing our next generation. For me, it was Becca. Exhausting to look after, but so worth it at the end of the day. But that's family love. It's tough, sometimes unbearable, especially during family vacations, but it is the love that shapes us ever since we were born. Philia, love between friends. I found this in my Phi Cap brothers. In this healthy atmosphere of peer pressure, I was pushed to be the most Derek I've ever been. They were the ones who made me serious about photography. As social media chair, I had to attend all the events to capture our milestones, and I'm glad that I did, for it opens up so many opportunities, like flying to DC and Texas to take photos of the national conferences, or crashing at the MIT's Phi Cap house during their rush week. I am indebted to these brothers who saw the potential within me and were the bigger person to fraternally correct me so that I could be better. It was painful at first, but it made me a better person who wants to do the same for others. Eros, love between lovers. I'm not going to disclose my love life, but I shall show you the life of my two low lovers, Perry and Blue. Watching their interaction and the cage politics that happen all the time really makes you realize that we can always be better towards our partners. Every morning, they preen each other, sometimes begrudgingly, but they always take turns cleaning one another. Sometimes they fight throughout the day, but one thing I've noticed is that Blue, no matter how hungry he is, will always wait for Perry before he eats. And at the end of the day, they will always go back in the same cage where all is forgiven. Their entire relationship parallels my parents, which I find rather endearing. Lastly, agape, love of God. If you notice, the first three loves revolve around love between two entities: love between you and the family, between you and your friends, between you and your lover. All of this to strive for something more. But the last one is very different. It is a love of God. The previous duality and equality in the relationship seems to be non existent and has been replaced by a behemoth monolithic entity. But through Jesus, he made God approachable. He is not simply infinite distance, but infinite nearness. He is everything between us and the universe. It is a very different love because it is a love that started time itself, traverses all space between creation, and one that is surprisingly also the most human of them all. For man is the only medium created by God that can express God Himself. Through Him, we can become the most perfect human being, just like Jesus was. Life. Boiled down to its essence, photography is all about capturing life. The life that surrounds us, the life that we encounter, as well as the life within ourselves. It is a connection between you and the object that is established and captured within a singular frame. The friends that we made, the dinners we ate, the weddings we celebrated together. Photography is all about capturing life. In photography, lighting is key. We need light to illuminate whatever is before us. Too much light, it becomes overly saturated. Too little, and all we see is a shadow. So, how do we achieve this balance? Let's start off with the basics: black and white. In black and white photography, though it is devoid of color, it is never boring. In fact, it brings forth a richer narrative. It allows us to focus on the object without getting distracted by the colors. It makes us see that life is never really just black or white, but just a shade of gray in between. That is also true in our spiritual lives. Nothing is ever clear cut. It is always going to be a shade of gray, a fine line that we have to thread by constantly discerning which steps to take next. In our own lives, we have our own voids, doubt, confusions, depression, or even possibly thoughts of suicide. An immense hole that we have dug ourselves into, some deeper than others. The deeper it goes, the less hope we have of getting out, and the further the light is away from us. Who would be willing to save us? This hole that we've dug in the center of our own interior rooms disrupt our daily duties. We skirt around it, we avoid it, we ignore it, but it's still there. We spend more time and energy to dismiss it rather than to address it. And when we try, the hole only seems to get deeper. The hole is empty, indifferent, and void of all love. We fear to let others into our rooms, as they may criticize the gaping hole in the middle of our room. But there's one person who will love us despite this void: God. He is the light at the end of the tunnel that we're stuck in, always waiting for us. But despite being stuck in this dark tunnel, there are many lights of different sizes along the way: a match, a torch, a candle, a lantern, a bonfire of others who have left their marks within this cave, each sharing their experiences with us as they show us the route they've tried to go and eventually where they've ended up. One of my lights was Marie. Even Jesus, the ultimate source of illumination, needed help fanning the flames as he climbed Golgotha. He had Simon of Cyrene, Veronica, and his mother to help him make it all the way to the top, so as to be a light upon the hill for all of us. This right here is the community that we are so lucky to have. A community that is willing to go into your cave to light up the way for you. With their experiences, advice, and prayers, we can discern and figure out the path that leads to the everlasting light, the source of light. But to see the light at the end, we need to focus and be still. That's what photography has taught me. You can never capture the stars and its beauty with a shaky hand. The darker our surroundings, the longer the shutter speed, the longer we have to be still. In our prayer lives, it is the same. The darker and messier our interior lives, the longer and harder we have to stay still and focus on a single spot: God. If we get distracted, we quaver, and the images before us becomes blurry. We often become dismayed, for all our hard work was for naught. But we have to keep on trying to be still. We try again to work on it by ourselves, to keep our own self still. We hold our breath, we meditate, we calm ourselves to the best of our human ability. And despite all this, our own effort is still in vain, for the final image is still blurry. But through God's intervention, His grace, His firm foundation, He is our steady tripod. He keeps us still and focused, even if the ground beneath us is shaky and the wind around us howls. He lets us see the light around us ever so clearly, as well as show us the way out of this hole. He shows us that we are surrounded by love, a love that overcomes all darkness. Now that we are out of this hole, we can see the world more vividly. It is no longer just space and void, but vivid colors, every single one of them. The darkest nights in our lives makes the sun rises in the morning ever so bright and beautiful. When our own holes are filled, we no longer have to tread carefully in our own rooms, and we can finally be at peace within it, and we can finally dance all around it. Overjoyed, we want to guide others out of their own holes, and we pass on this hope onto others, to be a torch for others, and do unto others what we have others do unto us. Love. But remember, no torches can light up the world by themselves. We each have to do our own part to support and sustain one another through these times of darkness. We have to start small. Just like planting a seed, we need to care for the plant. And we do so by first providing it an environment that is comfortable enough to germinate, as well as let enough light come through the windows. Sometimes our rooms aren't suited for it, and we have to reorientate our rooms again once more to bring our saplings closer towards the source of light. And that is how we let others experience the same light that has illuminated our lives. The more we let others into our lives, the more our rooms will evolve. This message of hope reminds me of a time when I was road tripping with one of my best friends, Vincent, during one of our winter breaks. We were in Vegas and just doing what every tourist does, we overloaded our travel itinerary. So, in a single day, as in I, the only driver, had to drive from Vegas to Antelope Canyon before reaching Grand Canyon at sunset. But we forgot one minor thing. There was an hour time difference, and so we arrived at the Grand Canyon when it was pitch black. And yeah, when you go to a place that's literally quite just a ditch in the middle of nowhere, you can't see anything. However, with my camera and with a longer shutter time, we were able to view this dark abyss in front of us as clear as day. In fact, even better, we could see the stars twinkle above head in the silence of the night. And this is where I saw God working in my life. He filled the void with many stars above, showing us that what we can't see with our own eyes. I once believed that only by having faith in the grand scheme of salvation will allow us to see hope. But I was wrong. We see this through our community, our friends, our families, and even strangers. Hope isn't a singular entity, but one that involves all of us, believing in love and practicing it all the time in our lives, in our journeys ahead. Hope is how we witness heaven on earth. It is Christ that works in us and through us as He illuminates the path ahead when we are lost. And if we continue down this path with many torches that bear His teaching, we not only reach the end of the road, but pave a new path for others that will soon embark on their own journey. A hope that our future would also obtain what the saints in the past have achieved, and what we are trying to do now as well, to love and be loved. So to conclude, the way. The way is our faith journey that we have to embark on. The truth. The truth is the reason for this journey, which is to love. The life. The life is the source of light that guides us, which is our hope. And through this, the way, the truth, and the life becomes faith, hope, and love. It is funny that faith and reason are often seen as two separate entities, two different aspects in our spiritual life. However, they are the two sides of the same coin. Faith is a journey, and reason is a purpose to embark on it, which is based out of love. Only when we start our own journey do we realize that we need a purpose to continue on it. Only when we find a reason will we be able to persevere all the hardships that come our way on this journey. Fides et ratio, faith and reason, are the two sides of the same coin, and our interior life is the substance between these two faces. It will always be a delicate balance between the two. However, the only way we can see the true inner depth of our own spiritual life is to let light shine upon it, to give us another dimension that we otherwise wouldn't have known. Yes, it will cast a shadow that we might not want to face, but on the other hand, we will be able to bask in the true hope and to understand our own true worth. So, if we put all of this together, we can start to see the world in a very different light. With photography, the amalgamation of time, intention, and the light, it can give you a very different perspective of the world. And it allows us to see all the things that we otherwise wouldn't be able to see. It allows us to see the world in a very different sense of time, be it fast or slow. The world around us is ever changing, and so is our interior life. Through all of this, we can finally see how God intended for us to view the world. The perfection of the world only time can tell. So, be patient, be present, be love, and see the light. And so, I will end off this journey with this last picture. The first picture that I ever took that started off this entire photo journey. It was 12 years ago in Paris, and it was taken with a 2 megapixel phone camera. You can capture the beauty no matter how lousy your equipment is. You just got to be present, to be there to listen to his will, and if you trust him, he will illuminate the scene before you. And that is how photography has allowed me to see faith, hope, and love in all things. And all of this stems from I am the way, the truth, and the light. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and I hope that you will be, just be present, be love, and most importantly, be the light for others. Thank you. Goodbye.